personal property.
All right, good morning. We are back for the second meeting of the day. This is a public hearing and a millage rate presentation. So I don't see, you don't have public comments on here. So I guess we'll just open it up during the public hearing for that. Okay, I guess this is not a voting meeting. This is just presentation. So go ahead, Jennifer, do it.
All right. Good afternoon, or morning? Good morning. Okay, this is the 2022 Tax Digest. This will be the presentation before it's opened up for public hearing. What is included in the digest? This kind of is just a brief Digest 101. What is included in the digest? You have your real property, which includes your agricultural, commercial, industrial, residential, utility, and conservation. Your personal property, the same categories, your motor vehicles, plus your mobile homes, your timber, heavy-duty equipment, and all of that total together is your gross digest. Then you have exemptions that apply to some of those categories above. When you subtract that out from your gross digest, you end up with your net digest, and that is the value that you start using to get your millage rate, or to value what a value of a mill is, and to set your millage rate. I know this is a lot of numbers, but just wanted you to have a snapshot. This is what one of the ads in the paper we're required to place is the current 2022 Tax Digest and 5-year history of levy. It's the public notice of when the millage rate will be set, and it gives you what each of the categories' current value is, as well as the previous 5 years. I do want to say it's very important because the state, unfortunately, makes it very confusing. Some people would look at this notice and say, oh my goodness, my tax bill is going to go up 19.3%. That is not the percent that the tax increase is. That is the increase in tax revenue that we will generate from both reassessed growth and new growth. And we'll go into that detail in a little bit later. However, the state does not allow you to put any other kind of explanation in this notice. It's got to be exactly like this. And it does stir up controversy on social media and in the paper about mostly when you're proposing not to roll back the millage rate. People go to this ad and they assume that is the percentage of the tax increase. For 2022 gross digest, we finally are over the $1 billion mark. We're at $1.02 billion with a B. 51% of that is residential. 26.7% is industrial. Commercial makes up 20.22%. And then we have a small sliver of 1.87% that consists of utilities, motor vehicles, agricultural, conservation, and mobile homes, timber, heavy equipment. As you know, Villa Rica is in 2 different counties, Douglas County and Carroll County. So we have to get the digest from both tax commissioners. This shows you just on Douglas County's side. What I wanted to point out is that Villa Rica's net digest is 41% in Douglas County. That $355 million, that makes up 41% of Villa Rica's total digest. The last column to the right is the percentage change in Douglas County for commercial is just under 20%, industrial just under 34%, residential had a change of just under 30%, the other smaller categories a minimal change. Our gross digest increased 28.86% on the Douglas County side. Our exemptions also increased by 31.8%. So our total change on the Douglas County side of Villa Rica's digest increased 28.26%. This is the same slide, but for Carroll County. Douglas County makes up 41% of Villa Rica's digest. Carroll County makes up 59%. So $511 million is the value of Villa Rica's digest in Carroll County. And the commercial had a change of 4.17%. Industrial had a change, an increase of 20.06%. Residential had around the same change of 20%. Other 17.22. Our gross digest increased on the Carroll side 15.74. So did our exemptions increase by just under 30%. So our total digest on the Carroll County side increased 13.77%. I reached out to both Douglas County and Carroll County in regards to the types of changes. Could they give us how much of each of these categories was new growth versus reassessment growth? And I couldn't get it in the format that we had originally requested. However, Carroll County did email me and gave me 3 bullet points as far as a blanket changes that happened to their digest. They said that their residential structures went from $87 per square feet in 2021 to 102 square feet. Small and large tracts of land saw an overall 25% increase, and urban land saw a 35% increase. So this slide right here is just showing those 2 previous slides combined that makes up Villa Rica's total digest. When you put them all together, you can see that our commercial went up 7.8%, industrial went up 24.47%, residential had an increase of 25.4%, and the other smaller categories experienced a 12.4%. Our overall gross digest increased just under 21%. Our exemptions increased by around 31%, so our overall digest increased the 19.3%. But again, that is new growth and reassessment growth. Another way to look at it, you've heard me talk about reassessment or inflationary growth. You can see that Douglas County had 11.62 in inflationary growth, where Carroll County had 7.4. When you put those together, smooth those out, average it together, total Villa Rica had a 9.1% inflationary growth to the digest, reassessments. Growth, new or other changes to the digest, Douglas County experienced 16.64%, Carroll 6.2%. So the total Villa Rica is 10.2. So when you put those together, again, Villa Rica's digest changed by 19.3%. As I've said before, there's 2 types of growth or changes in the digest. You have the reassessment inflationary growth. This is due to reassessment of property, and this is the value that you have to take in consideration when you roll back the millage rate, and we'll talk about that in a second. The other type of change is new growth or other changes in the digest. This is due to new or improved property. This you do not have to factor in when you're calculating your rollback millage rate. So those 2 added together is the total changes in your digest. So for Villa Rica, our 2021 value of 1 mil was $727,106. The value of this year's millage rate is $867,418. The boxes down at the bottom show that for Villa Rica we had a 9.1% inflationary growth. The revenue generated from that is $413,437. The new growth is 10.2%, and the revenue generated from that is $463,512. So when we talk again about the rollback, this is just a quick and dirty of how that's calculated. State law requires that we do this calculation to offset any inflationary increases to the to the digest. So you take your inflationary growth, which was $66 million, and you divide that by your net digest for 2022. You multiply that by your prior year millage rate, which is 6.25, and that's how you get the value of your millage that you have to at least show and calculate of the rollback, which is 0.477. So even though we are proposing or suggesting, recommending that we maintain the same identical millage rate as we had last year, because of the lovely state law, we have to advertise it as an increase in taxes. So our 2021 millage is 6.25. The rollback equivalent is 0.477. So the millage rate that is considered the rollback millage rate is 5.773. Again, we're making the recommendation to maintain the same millage rate as 2021, not roll back. This means that we're recommending 6.25 mils versus the rollback mill of 5.773 mils. This is an 8.26% increase. That 8.26 is just the difference between the 6.25 and the 5.773. The revenue, again, that would be generated is $413,000. Due to state requirements, this is considered a tax increase, and 3 public hearings are required. So we will be having one today after this presentation, another one this evening for the second one at 6 p.m., and the last and final one is next Tuesday, August the 30th at 6 p.m., and after that public hearing would be adoption of the millage, so that we can send the data, all the signed documents to each of the tax commissioners so they can meet their deadline to get things to the Department of Revenue so they can begin the levy. And that is all of my presentation.
Okay, before we do a public hearing on this, let me see if council has any questions on the tax digest and millage rate calculation. Ms. McPherson. Could you turn your mic on?
Would you explain how the local option sales tax plays into this and the millage and how it's applied at the state level, that sort of thing?
Sure. And I believe Sarah has brought this up before. They also use the word rollback when they talk about the local option sales tax. So it gets kind of confusing when we're talking about the rollback we're talking about today versus the lost rollback. How lost is included in the millage rate calculation is the purpose of local option sales tax was to ease the burden of taxpayers. Residential homestead taxpayers. So what the law or the state requires is that the value of local option sales tax that we receive over a period of 12 months, and the state tells us that amount, we have to do a millage equivalent and say how many mills does that amount calculate to, and that's the amount that we have to show on our, where it says gross millage rate is we'll go to the second section below the first gray line. You have the gross millage rate, and we'll go to the last column since we're talking about 2022. So the gross millage rate is 10.3588. Less rollbacks, that is your local option sales tax rollback. What that means is if local option sales tax did not exist, then we would have to levy 4.1088 mils to generate that same amount of revenue that local option sales tax generated.
Okay, show me which line you're working. I just got
Okay,
to page
I'm sorry,
3.
page 3. If you go to the second below the first gray bar, you have your gross millage rate. You have we'll go to the last column. You have 10.3588.
Got it.
Then you have less rollbacks. That is the local option sales tax rollback. So what we receive in local option sales tax equals 4 mils to us. So if we did not receive the local option sales tax, then our millage would have to go up 4 mils in order to generate that same revenue.
Okay, but you can only, the max you can roll it back is 1 mil, is that correct?
No.
Based on the local option sales tax? Okay,
No.
so
They're not related.
we did,
The same word, but it's not, this rollback and the rollback that y'all decide on are not
right,
related.
right. But the purpose, okay, so the purpose of Lost is to take the pressure off property owners. Okay, we collect a local option sales tax. So that amount that we collected, you're saying that the amount we collected this year is equal, if we were to tax for that property, we would have to go up by 4 mils.
Correct.
So it's doing the purpose it was put in place for.
Correct.
So what amount is that we've collected and lost? Am I looking at it here and,
It's-
I mean, what's the amount of money that it generated for us? I know we have to work it out with the county and we get different amounts.
It's three, up toward 4 million combined.
If you would take down. Oh, I guess
And
I
does
could
the
drive
state,
it. I'm sorry.
does the state apply it?
No, we have to show it. That's part of the calculation that we have to do, is we have to show, and that's part of the advertising. That's why they require us to advertise it that way. So 1 mil is $867,418. So you would take that times the 4.108, and that's how much is generated.
3.6 million dollars.
And that's for this year?
That's on the prior the prior 12 months.
Yeah,
Yes.
what came in, okay, through
It may
Lost.
not balance
With
exactly to our fiscal year, but it's the 12 months that the state tells us we have to use.
Okay. So if it's to reduce the taxes so that we don't have to up the millage rate, but we don't apply it in any sort of way, we just get the money.
When you say apply it, what do you mean?
Well, there's no type of formula such as if we were to get 6 million in Lost instead of 3 million, there's no formula where we would apply that to our millage rate.
Correct.
You know what I'm asking? Okay.
The only place it ever shows up is right there.
So Lost exists to take the pressure off property owners. And I'm legitimately asking this because I'm trying to make sure I understand it, because it does get confusing. That's the reason it exists. We can demonstrate the money that it brings in and how that would equate to a millage rate. So, but there's not some sort of way that we go, well, if we bring in a certain amount, we're going to alter our millage rate based on that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, another way to think about it. Let's say that the state mandated that we could only have a millage rate of 5 mils, and that's the most we could ever have, right?
Okay.
Or worse, let's say that they said that your gross millage rate, the two together, property tax and loss together, could only be 10. Can you bring that back up, Teresa, page 3? So if that the line that says gross M&O millage, if the most it could be, according to the state, was 10, the more your loss went up, the lower your millage would be for your property tax, right? But there is no cap. So really, this is it's just a state mandated calculation that doesn't really impact how we do our budget.
So we could get a whole bunch in loss tax and not really make it affect our millage rate, even though that's what it's for, right? because of property tax. The
Yeah,
reason
but
we,
look at the number and look how consistent we are. 10.5, 10.2, 10.1, 10.4, 10.6, 10.4. So I mean, our property tax and our sales tax together are tending to be at the same rate year by year by year by year by year.
okay, we'll talk, I'd like to talk a little further outside the meeting, just to be really clear on how that works with the local option sales tax. Okay, thanks.
All right, anybody else? Okay, let's do a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in public hearing on the millage presentation today? Anybody?
Oh, come on.
All right. Going once. Going twice. That's what I figured. Come on up here.
Just so somebody spoke, Michael Young, 9634 Coastal Point Road, Mirror Lake. Out on the website, the budget proposal presentation and this tax digest presentation was not on the website. So would you please get that out there quickly so we can circulate that?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. You used 8 seconds. Anybody else?
And I would just ditto that, because I want to have copies to send out too. That's really good. It helps people understand it.
All right. Let me close the public hearing. So we'll close up the public hearing. Let's come back to council and see if anyone has any questions now on the millage presentation. Okay. If there are none, let me just check my schedule here. Yep. Okay. Ms. McCoy.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh gosh, on this page, doesn't have a number, was it number? Oh yeah, it is, 11. I just wrote on it. Sorry. Just so, I think you said it clearly, I'm just verifying.
Is your microphone on? Well, I can hear you real well.
Okay,
Better.
thank you. Just to clarify, on page 11, with the state law requiring, is that even though it stayed exactly the same, it had to go as I was trying to look at the verbiage or something. It had to go as an increase, which could create confusion in the public that it's advertised as an increase, even though it isn't an increase in the millage rate.
In the millage rate, correct.
Okay, that's what, I think that's where some confusion was. I just wanted to make that comment and get it out in the public.
Yeah, and like I said, unfortunately, maintaining the millage rate, yes, if the value of your home or business increased, then you will pay additional taxes. And that's what the ad states. That's, the ads are required. The language has to be exactly the way they have it. They even go down to it's got to be 30 inches square, and they get out a ruler. So they're very particular on how much or how little you can put in an ad. That's
Okay.
why Ken worked with me, and he put out a press release
Okay.
that could put in anything. But yes, the millage rate, we're asking for the millage rate to be the same. But yes, if the value of your home increased, you would pay more in taxes. But it's not because of the rate going up. It's because the value of
value,
your asset went up, which is a good thing for the homeowner for resale. But I
Yes.
understand for tax purposes, that's not a good thing.
Okay. That's all I wanted to get out there, because I have heard people contact me and had a little confusion about it, and I was curious why I'm like, we're not raising it, and I just want to get that out there. That's all. Thank you, Jennifer.
But I think in that same note, and it's fair to talk about this, I've been in real estate for a long time. If you don't see an increase, then you are not going to see an increase in the additional dollars that you pay. What I think seems to be a thread of comment today is that there are exponential increases in property values that some people have decided that are just they're completely fake. But it doesn't matter, because it still has the same impact on what happens to your life, whether you think it's fake or not. If you're ready to sell your house, you're going to be able to sell your house for that new. What is that?
Your 3 minutes are up, Mayor.
So, and of course you do have some of that. I mean, but that is real. Those are real numbers too. It would be, I mean, I don't know anybody smart enough to tell me that every increase in property values is completely, inflated and bogus and not real, because when they turn around and sell their home, believe me, they're going to try to sell it for that number. And they're going to get that, because what is happening here in Rica and really across the state, and probably in a lot of places and pockets across the country, property values are increasing because there is not enough supply. It is a real number. It's not a made up number. So,
And can I
with
make
that,
one? I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Can I make one point for the assessor's office in both counties and every county, that they get audited by the state. They have to meet. They have to become be within range of that 40%. That which is 40% of assessed value. They are audited every year, and they have to become. They have to be within that range. And if they're not, then they have to make those corrections. And I know both Carroll and Douglas have had a clean audit on their numbers.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that audit. Okay, anybody else? You got anything?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I would just say, not that the numbers are fake, but I would say they are artificially inflated, and I think everybody sees that, whether they get fuel or go to the grocery store or buy anything. And the fact that people can be charged for that, which may very well fall through the ground like it did in, what was it, '08? Crash of '08? I think I got the year right on that. But that for the same services, they may have artificially high property value, but it's the same house it was last year. And that can reverse and go the other way just as well. So I can see where that would be a problem for people going, well, gosh, it's not exactly based on how much more, services I'm getting. It's the fact that that's just the economic conditions we're in right now, with property values.
Okay, you didn't have anything you were trying to
No,
get
I got-
attention for
I
her?
got one.
All right, go.
So what's not in the budget? No police cars. So why? So one reason.
Is your mic on?
One reason that we don't have cars in there is we don't have the money, right? But the real reason is we don't need more police cars. We're short staffed, so we've got cars sitting in the Avante building that we're not using, and we bought 6 cars last November or something. One of them is ready, and it's August. And we have them from Ford, but we can't get them equipped with lights and radio and that kind of thing. The company that we use has lost all but one of their technicians and just literally can't get to it. So we're not proposing any police vehicles in this one. And if you noticed, there were can I say this and be truthful, Jennifer? There were no general fund vehicles in this budget, right? Is that a true statement? So what you saw in there was water and sewer, right? That's not a good thing, but for where we are today, we have really made a lot of progress in identifying the issues that we have at the facility level. And we've been, chipping away at it for 5 years. But the longer we're working on it, the more we uncover. And so some things are, easy, like switching everything to LED. That's sort of a no-brainer. And I think even before I got here, when David was here, we did some roof replacement and repair. So we really haven't had to deal with that much since I've been here. But there are just a lot of other things that we're doing. Some are bigger projects, like replacing the generator in this building, so that if we have an outage for an extended period, this place can function. right? We've never been able to say that before. But if you sort of back up and look at where we're headed in our budgets, not just this budget, but where we're going, I hope, based on what I told y'all at the last council meeting, that we're beginning to get to where we can at least see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel on this repetitive water and sewer repair expense that we've been incurring. Pumps at the lift stations, SCADA, bigger system replacements at the north plant, and now with the west plant getting around the 10-year age, we're starting to do replacements in the west plant. And I'm hoping in another year that we can look back and feel pretty good about those two facilities. So the next one coming up is the water plant. 60 years old. The mayor and I have agreed that if we can't find at least 3 million gallons a day of raw water, that we're not going to come to you and recommend a new building. That we're either going to limp along with what we have and band-aid it, or we'll get out of the business, which I don't want to do. So of the three choices, quit making water, make water with a 60-year-old plant, or build a new plant, we're picking from three really bad choices, right? A 3 million plant doesn't make sense without 3 million in water. Band-aiding the 60-year-old one is not cost effective, and it has no redundancy. So every time we have to shut it down, we have to buy all of our water periodically. And getting out of the business is terrible, because then we're a captive customer. You're not going to like that, I can tell you. But anyway, so that's a big picture. I mean, strategically, I don't know that there are many things that we're going to do as a group that will have more long-term impact on Villa Rica than that decision right there. Is raw water, the water plant, the contracts. That, I think when we look back 10 years from now, or 15 or 20, how we handle that will be one of the most important things we do. And I wish we had better choices, but right now we don't. Short term, the biggie is the IGA and the TAD. Strategically, I feel like that for this year, that's the big strategic decision that we're trying to make or accomplish is, can we get that TAD done, and then can we build the TAD out? I think the North Bypass is going to be big, but it's not as big as the TAD. I think the TAD's huge. And then what we do down 61 will be really important. All right, so I'd like to talk a little bit about that whole land acquisition thing in the building a new municipal complex. We have the opportunity to build before the Mirror Lake connector goes in. But if we don't do that, I think one of two things is almost certain to happen. One is the land will be so expensive we can't justify buying it, right? Or somebody else is going to pick it up and it will be out of our control. I don't know where we're going to go with that, but we've got to have a lot of cash to do that, or take on debt through the Public Facilities Authority. So that needs to be on your mind about how you want to approach that. That is not a typical city decision to make the kind of investment. It's sort of a once every 20, 30, 40-year decision when you start talking about a city hall and a council chambers and a courtroom and a PD building and public works, and where does all that go and how does it work together. But we got some big ones facing us, I feel like, especially for a city our size. When you take the TAD, the water issue in City Hall, you're going to earn your money making those decisions. I mean, those are big decisions from my perspective. we have a staffing issue now that has existed on and off ever since I've been here, and it has fluctuated from being a problem to being okay to being a problem to being okay, and now it's critical. At the same time, on the water and sewer side, we've gone from bad to worse to better to bad to worse to better, and we're the healthiest we've been in water and sewer staffing since I've been here. Still not great. We've got one whole crew in water and sewer that's still never been staffed. We've had 3 crews budgeted and 2 crews filled, right? We never can get to that 3rd crew because we'll add a guy and we'll lose a guy, you know. But in PD, we're really short, and we're taking some extra steps to try to get that in place. But how does that work together, right? You got the staffing issue on the one side, and you got this land acquisition thing that we're trying to figure out. My sort of broad stroke thought about what we're doing is, at the end of every budget, what I want us to do is to roll $1 million in the fund balance. In a bad year, maybe $500,000, but in a normal year, $1 million. So where's $1 million come from, right? You're outperforming the budget, which is you're underspending expenses or you're receiving more revenue than you projected. It's the combination of that. So what has happened since I've been here is we've been building fund balance, right? You've seen that. But what we have gotten into the habit of, because of the way that we're trying to conservatively budget revenue, is we're getting into the year and we see the additional revenue coming in, and we see that we're building potential fund balance because of what we call dark time, right? We've got positions budgeted and they're not filled. So even during the year, we're seeing this potential increase in fund balance, and what are we doing with it? Is we're spending it. We're coming to you with budget adjustments all during the year, and we're either looking at these facility problems or whatever, you know, and coming to you and saying, hey, can we have the money, move it from here to there, either because we got more revenue or we're not staffing fully, and let's go fix some stuff. So we're fixing stuff like crazy. And you don't really get to see it, I don't think. It's sort of like us doing water and sewer line stuff, and it's in the ground and you don't know, but we're fixing stuff all over the place. So we're at the point now with our fund balance where we don't need to generate more fund balance, right? We're at or really beyond the top end of what the experts say is a comfortable place, which is 25 to 40% of your expenses. So if we have a $15 million budget, 40% of that would be $6 million, and our fund balance is 6 point something, right? So we're already comfortable, right, as far as rainy day goes, but we are not ready to go bite off a $10 million municipal complex, which is what I'd like for us to work toward as we continue to save every year on the expense side and conservatively budget revenue. We build a cash balance, and then how does that save us money? Well, if we can buy the land now while it's cheap and we don't have to go totally in debt to build the building, we save interest. You're going to save twice, right? The escalation in the land price, the interest on the debt to build the building. So that's, big picture, that's sort of where my head is. Now, are we all going to be around to do that? Probably not. I mean, that whole municipal complex thing, there might not be a single one of us up, here. None of y'all, me, none of us may be here when that day comes, but we can lay the groundwork for us to get there, right? Without it being debilitating on our finances to, even if we were to finance 10 million for 20 years, another $500,000, you look at our budget, how hard is it to get $500,000 out of here? It's hard, right? And if you do it for 20 years, the interest just eats you up. So if you do it for 10 years, that's more than $1 million a year. How hard is it to get $1 million out of this? That's more than two. That's $1 million and something. So anyway, does that make sense? Just, we don't talk big picture a whole lot when we're in there. We're sort of in the weeds and fussing about, whether we put 50 grand here or 50 grand there, but we're making really good progress. If you look back over 5 years, really good. So questions? Miss Anna, you hadn't been here that long, so does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I have a couple questions.
You sure? You sure? Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Carter.
Okay, we are short in the police department by about 10 people or so, maybe more. But this budget does have those still in it, is that correct? Okay.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
Well, just to ditto the fixing things, I wouldn't have considered us, and we're still not there, a well-oiled machine, because there was too many things wrong that needed to be fixed, and manholes we didn't know existed, and just the fact that we're doing that. So I hope, at least we're working our way toward that well-oiled machine, and some of that'll come out when we talk about bulk pickup and that sort of thing, as to how we figure out how to charge for that and how efficient we can be. But the fact that we don't have a bunch of stormwater going into our sewer that we're then cleaning up and process, you know what I mean? Because it's leaking in where it's not supposed to go. And that stuff is now getting fixed. So that's part of that stuff you referred to that we don't see, but it really matters.
And I appreciate you bringing that part up. Those are savings that we don't see, but we know about. We know that we're still identifying leaks. And we just recently found a huge leak. And every time we find those in the ground somewhere, very difficult to find, usually it's by accident, when that repair is made, we save money for the entire system because we're not treating all of this water again, and we're able to keep it inside the line. So that's just one of the things that we see happening as we make all of these repairs and these improvements to our systems. I feel like, over the last several years, we have worked really hard to build a good foundation for the growth that we know is coming in terms of our infrastructure. And I would hate to see us take a step forward and 2 steps back, because as we've talked about, even in this group, we know there are facility needs here. That municipal complex is more than needed. We have staff spread all over the city in makeshift offices. We've created offices in warehouses, just building out space. So it's not just, I don't even know if it's a want. It is critically important that we have a new municipal complex. And right now, it's critical that we make some of that big picture, long-term planning for land acquisitions and where we might put these, because if we talk too much about it, some of the areas where we would consider purchasing could suddenly become much more expensive. But I think it's probably accepted among this group that we need to look at some of that forward thinking in terms of acquisitions and planning for municipal complex, among other improvements here to the city. So I appreciate those comments, and I'm not sure everybody at home maybe knows, sort of the basis for where that comes from, but I think everybody up here does. Does anybody else have any questions or any more comments? Tom, Sarah? Okay. All right. Ms. McCoy.
I was just going to say about the municipal complex, like, and I hate to ask the finance department because I've been in their shoes and I've had to pull reports like this. But what have we spent on renovating? Like over the last 4 years, what have we spent renovating buildings and moving staff into other buildings and stuff like that? What, how much ballpark might that be?
Probably not a lot of dollars, a good bit of time, because
Okay.
we do it in-house. It's just that we're disjointed now. We move people out of City Hall into customer service. So that helped us, but it split us. And then you've got PD over here, and then we move people into Avante, right? Charlie Davis is over there now. Bobby's over there now. And then we did the big V-Plex move, right? So they're on the very end of the city limits. So it's not that it's been exorbitantly expensive. It's just there's no comparison between me getting up from my desk and walking into Sarah's office versus trying to talk to Tracy or Bobby. You know, because
Okay.
I can't just go walk and see them. It's the operational part of it is what's hard.
Okay.
And we're fixing to have the old library become available, right? And we're gonna have to make another decision. You know, do we add another building to the list of buildings that we operate out of?
But I think to your point, though, even though, and you really don't know the number right here today, but even though you say the number is probably not some exorbitant number, think about this sort of like the leaks that we are under. It's a small impact, but over time, it's a large impact. Think about the fact that when we need to talk to Ron or we need to go over P&Z or we have, legal, people have to come from all
Right.
over the city. They're using their personal cars. They're still driving over there to have those meetings where that's like a small leak. And all of those leaks add up to real money. And in those cases, maybe those employees are paying that. But having, a unified building, a municipal complex where all these departments work together and can, be accessible without the expense and the time, moving back and forth, makes sense too.
I was going to say on that note, yeah, if you're traveling from City Hall to the V-Plex, that's a good 10-minute drive. I don't want to say that's 20 minutes they're not working, but that's 20 minutes of just kind of lost time. And especially with staffing shortages and stuff, it would be way more beneficial for them to be able to just go upstairs or go up an elevator. So I can see that in an efficiency standpoint.
But again, that's an elusive number, right? Like turnover. I mean, turnover cost us a lot of money, but it's hard to put that into, when we're looking at whether we're going to do this COLA or not, what are we losing in turnover? It's hard to put that into a dollar amount, but that's a real number. That's a huge number. Training, time, all that kind of thing. All right, anybody else? Okay, all right, I appreciate everyone being here today. We have another meeting tonight at 6? So what we're going to do next, we're going to take a lunch. I'll adjourn in just a minute. We'll take a lunch. We'll all go down to Lost Cowboys and have lunch. And then we'll come back after lunch, and we will go back into the budget presentation, and we'll have department heads here so that we can get a little more in-depth with some of these questions. So with that, we'll be adjourned.
One question.